Why didn't you call before coming?
Leyla stood frozen in the corridor outside the private dining room of Aria, one of Gangnam's most exclusive restaurants. In her trembling hands was a report she had waited 3 months to see. The words were right there in black and white. Positive. She was pregnant. She was finally carrying Seojun Kim's child. But before she could push open that door, before she could cross the distance between where she was standing and where her entire future was supposed to begin, she heard something that stopped her completely. His voice, through the door, low and certain and devastatingly sincere.
I should have chosen you from the beginning. I know that now. I know it too late, but I know it. I love you.
He was not talking to Leyla. What happened next would send Leyla running through the rain on a Tuesday evening in Gangnam into the backseat of a car she did not recognize, belonging to a man she had never seen. A decision that would lead to a hospital discovery so rare, so medically improbable, that two powerful men would find themselves fighting over a truth nobody had prepared for. And by the time the full picture emerged, nothing, not one single thing, would be the same again. But before Leyla Johnson became the center of a story that would leave souls stunned, she was simply a young woman trying to survive. She had no wealthy parents waiting somewhere in the background, no family name that opened doors before she knocked, no inheritance, no safety net, no one to call when things went wrong at 2 in the morning. Leyla was an orphan who had understood very early that the world did not hand out what you did not earn. Every tuition payment, every meal, every bill she managed to pay on time had come from hours she could not get back. She attended her design classes during the day and worked 2 jobs at night, a restaurant in Mapogu that closed at midnight, and a weekend shift at a convenience store in Hongdae that she had kept for almost 2 years because the owner, an older woman named Mrs. Bay, always left food at the counter for her to eat before she locked up. That was Leyla's life. Not glamorous, not simple, but hers. And yet, despite everything life had taken from her, Leyla remained soft in the places that mattered. She still believed in people. She still believed in effort and honesty and the particular kind of love that shows up even when it is inconvenient. She believed in all of it because she had seen none of it growing up and had decided, somewhere in her teenage years in a group home in Lagos, that she was going to be the evidence that it existed. Most of all, she believed in Seojun Kim. For nearly 3 years, Seojun had been the fixed point in a life that had very few of them. To Leyla, he was not the sole heir to the Kim Group, one of Seoul's most quietly powerful conglomerates. He was not the son of a family whose name appeared on buildings and foundations and charity galas that Leyla could never have afforded to attend. He was not the man that 3 generations of Korean business had groomed to be exactly what he was: polished, charming, strategic, and careful. To Leyla, he was simply the man she loved, the man who had found her crying over a failed exam in the university library at 11 o'clock at night and sat beside her for 2 hours without asking why. The man who learned how she took her coffee before she had to tell him twice. The man who said, "I want to build something real," in a way that made her believe it. The way you believe things that are delivered without decoration. She had believed him, completely, continuously, at great cost to herself, as it turned out. Because the truth was that the Kim family had known about Leyla for 18 months and had been working around her the entire time. Seojun's mother, Madam Kim Soo-yeon, was a woman who understood power the way architects understand load-bearing walls. She knew exactly which structures to leave in place and which ones to quietly remove before anyone noticed the building shifting. She had identified Leyla as a temporary structure from the moment Seojun brought her name into a family dinner conversation. The woman she had chosen for her son was Min Ji-yeon, 27, Seoul National University. Her family owned 3 hospitals and a shipping company. She was appropriate in every way that Leyla was not, and Madam Kim had been patient. She had waited. She had maneuvered without fingerprints. And Seojun had let it happen. Not deliberately, not cruelly, with the particular passivity of a man who loved 2 women in 2 different ways and could not find the courage to choose until the choice was made for him by a Tuesday evening in a private dining room in Gangnam, where his feelings simply came out of him before he could organize them into something less dangerous. Leyla did not know any of this yet. She was standing in a corridor with a pregnancy report in her hand, and her future dissolving quietly behind a closed door. She stood there for exactly 4 seconds. Then she turned and walked. Then faster. Then she was running. The rain in Gangnam that evening was the kind that arrives without warning and commits completely. By the time Leyla pushed through the restaurant's side exit onto the street behind Apgujeong-ro, she was already shaking, and the rain finished what the shaking started. Her coat soaked through in seconds. Her shoes were wrong for weather and wrong for running, and she ran anyway, down the side street, past a convenience store, with its lights too bright against the dark, past a row of parked cars she barely saw. She stopped at the last one. A black Genesis G90, engine off, parked cleanly against the curb. The back door was unlocked. She did not think about why. She did not think about anything. She pulled it open, and got in, and pulled it shut, and pressed herself against the far door, and breathed. The report was still in her hand. She looked at it, positive. She closed her eyes. Outside, the rain hit the windows steadily. Inside, the car smelled like cedarwood and leather, and something cooler underneath. Something deliberate. The kind of scent a space carries when the person who occupies it has never once been careless about anything. She did not notice the man in the front seat until he spoke. "You're in my car." Leyla's eyes flew open. He was in the driver's seat. She had not heard him get in. He was simply there, the way certain people are simply there, like they do not enter spaces so much as materialize in them. Dark coat, broad shoulders, a face that was composed and sharp and completely unreadable. He was looking at her in the rearview mirror, with eyes that were taking inventory, without any visible emotion attached to the process. She did not move. "I know," she said. "You're wet. I know that too." He held her gaze in the mirror for one more moment. Then he reached into the back seat without turning around, retrieved a folded jacket from beside her, and extended it without ceremony. She stared at it. He did not retract it. She took it. "Where do you need to go?" he asked. The question was so simple, so direct. She almost broke at the simplicity of it, because the honest answer was nowhere, and everywhere, and back in time by approximately 40 minutes, and none of those were real answers. "I don't know," she said. He nodded once, as if that was perfectly acceptable, as if women in wet coats with nowhere to go were a coordinate he knew how to navigate. He started the engine. "Then I'll drive," he said. His name was Kang Min-jun. She would not learn that for another hour. What she learned first, sitting in the back of his car, as Seoul moved past the rain-streaked windows in blurs of light, was that he did not ask unnecessary questions. He drove. He let her sit in the silence she needed, without filling it with anything she hadn't requested. When she finally stopped shaking, he said quietly, without looking back, that there was water in the console if she needed it. There was. She drank it. She said thank you. He nodded. That was all. It was more than she'd had all evening. What Leyla did not know as she sat in that car was who Kang Min-jun was to this city. Seoul had many powerful men. Men with money, men with influence, men whose names appeared in newspapers and boardrooms and charity auction programs. Those men were known. Their power was catalogued and displayed and largely understood. Kang Min-jun was not one of those men. He was the kind of power that does not announce itself, the kind that other powerful men reference in lowered voices and then move past quickly, the way you move past a subject that makes the air change. He was 36 years old, and he ran the Kang organization, a structure that had its legitimate architecture, import logistics, private security, real estate in Hanamdong and Yongsan, and one building in Busan that nobody discussed. And beneath that architecture, a network that Seoul's underworld understood as simply the way things worked. He was not feared the way dramatic men are feared, loudly, with visible threat. He was feared the way gravity is feared, quietly, constantly, because the consequences of ignoring it were absolute. His men called him boss. His associates called him Mr. Kang. The people who reported to him on the other side of his business, the side without business cards, called him nothing to his face and everything necessary behind his back. Women found him compelling and kept their distance because women who paid attention understood that compelling and safe were not the same category. He had not brought a woman into his home in 4 years. On a Tuesday evening in Gangnam, in the rain, he had found one in his back seat. He drove her to his apartment in Hanamdong because she had nowhere else, and because something in the particular quality of her stillness, not calm, but the exhausted architecture of a person who had absorbed too much and was holding it together through sheer structural stubbornness, made leaving her on a street corner an option he did not consider. He showed her the guest room. He told Mrs. Yoon to prepare it. He said she would be staying. Mrs. Yoon, who had worked for the Kang household for 11 years and had seen most things, looked at the woman in the wet coat, with the piece of paper still in her hand, and asked no questions. She brought tea, ginger, because she noticed. Leyla sat on the edge of the guest room bed with both hands wrapped around the mug and thought about nothing for a very long time. Then she thought about everything. Then she thought about Seojun's voice through the door and the way the words had been arranged. Not guilty words, not the words of a man caught doing something wrong, but the words of a man relieved to finally be saying something true. That was the part she could not find a place to put. He had not been lying to Jiyeon. He had been lying to himself for 3 years, with Leyla as the material he used to do it. She set down the mug. She looked at the pregnancy report on the nightstand where she had placed it without thinking. Positive. She pressed her hand flat against her stomach. 2 of you. The scan had suggested 3 weeks ago. Possibly. Come back in a month to confirm. She had been coming back in a month to confirm. She had been coming to the restaurant to tell Seojun first. She had imagined his face. She had imagined the dinner they would have afterward, the conversation about what came next, the beginning of the thing she had been quietly building toward for 3 years. She had not imagined this room, this silence, this stranger's jacket still around her shoulders. She did not take it off. The confirmation came on a Wednesday morning 6 weeks later. Leyla was alone in the clinic when the doctor sat down across from her, with the kind of careful posture that precedes information nobody has a script for. She had been living in Minjun's guest room for those 6 weeks, a temporary arrangement that had become, through the accumulation of small, unremarkable days, something that neither of them had formalized or ended. She had expected the twin confirmation. She had been preparing for that. She had not been preparing for what came after it. The doctor explained it slowly, precisely. Heteropaternal superfecundation. Rare. Documented in medical literature. The result of 2 separate fertilization events within the same cycle. 2 embryos. 2 fathers. The doctor said it 3 different ways to make sure she understood. Leyla understood after the first way. She sat in the chair across from the doctor's desk for a long time after the explanation ended. The sole traffic moved outside the clinic window. A bus went past. Someone's phone rang in the corridor and was quickly silenced. The ordinary world continued its business, completely indifferent to the fact that Leyla's had just been restructured entirely. 2 babies, Seojun's and Minjun's. One from the man who had broken her without meaning to. One from the man who had found her in the breaking. She pressed both hands against her stomach, slowly, deliberately. Both of you, she thought. I know, I've got you. She picked up her phone. She called Minjun first. He came home in 18 minutes. She heard the elevator before she heard the door. Then his footsteps, measured, unhurried, the walk of a man who does not rush because he does not panic, but who had clearly not wasted time getting there. He came into the living room still in his coat. He read her face before she said a word, and then he sat down across from her and waited. She told him, all of it, the doctor's words, the medical term, what it meant, which child belonged to whom, as far as the preliminary testing indicated. She watched his face move through something she had not seen on it in 6 weeks of careful observation. Not shock, something deeper, something that rearranged. His jaw tightened once and released. His eyes held hers without looking away. When she finished, he was quiet for what felt like a long time, but was probably 10 seconds. Then he said, "Are you all right?" Not a question, a calibration. "I don't know yet," she said honestly. He nodded. He reached across the space between them and covered her hands with his. One movement, no ceremony. "You called me first," he said. "Yes." A pause. Why? She had thought about this on the drive back from the clinic. The honest answer, the one she had been turning over like something she needed to examine from every angle before she trusted it. Because you've never once made me feel like my problems were an inconvenience, she said. In 6 weeks, you have not made me feel that once. Do you understand how rare that is? Something moved across his face, the closest thing to undone she had ever seen on him. He did not say anything. He did not need to. She called Seojun that evening. He had been calling every day, sometimes twice. He had sent flowers to the building. She still did not know how he had found the address, though she had her suspicions about what a man with resources and sufficient desperation was capable of. And she had not responded to the flowers. She had not responded to most things. She had been waiting until she had something real to say. She had something real now. He answered before the second ring. Leyla, her name in his mouth. Still the same. Still the voice that had read to her on Sunday mornings and called her at midnight when he was in Tokyo for work and missed her more than his schedule had space for. Please tell me you're okay. Tell me you're safe. I'm safe, she said. I need you to listen. I'm listening. I'm listening to everything. Whatever you need to say. Seojun. Quiet. Firm. The voice she had developed in 6 weeks of choosing herself over accommodation. I'm going to say this once and I need you to hear it without responding until I'm finished. A pause. Okay. I was pregnant when I came to the restaurant that night. She kept her voice even. I was coming to tell you. I heard what you said to Jiyeon before I opened the door. I left because I could not stand in that corridor one more second. And I could not confront you one more second. And I did not know what else to do with myself. Silence on the line. She kept going. I've had 6 weeks to process what I heard. I've had 6 weeks to understand that you did not plan to hurt me. That what you said to her was true, and that it existing does not cancel out what we had, a breath. I've also had 6 weeks to understand that what we had was not enough, not because of Jiyeon, because of who you let yourself be with me, versus who you let your family make you. Leyla, I'm not finished. She stood at the window of Minjin's apartment, the Han River below, the city lit and indifferent. There's something else. Something you need to know and cannot hear over the phone. I need you to come tomorrow. Lobby only. I'll come down to you. A very long pause. Are you all right? His voice was careful now, reading the weight of what she wasn't saying. Come tomorrow, she said. 11 o'clock. She ended the call. She stood at the window for a long time. Behind her, she heard Minjin's door open down the hall. His footsteps. They stopped near the living room entrance. He did not come in. He did not ask. He's coming tomorrow, she said, without turning. I know, he said. A pause. Are you going to be in the building? She asked. She felt rather than heard the shift in the room. The particular quality of his attention redirecting. Yes, he said. One word. But the weight of it was considerable. The weight of a man who had already decided how tomorrow would go and was courteous enough not to say so out loud. She almost smiled. Minjin. Leyla. Don't do anything that will complicate this. A brief silence. Then, very quietly, almost dry. I'll be in the building. She shook her head. She turned back to the window. Outside, Seoul continued. Indifferent. Luminous. Entirely unaware. Seojun arrived at 11 exactly. She had always appreciated that about him. His punctuality. The way he treated time as something that belonged to other people as much as himself. She had catalogued the things she appreciated about him over 6 weeks. Deliberately. The way you catalog things you are deciding whether to keep. The list was real. She was honest enough to admit that. He stood in the lobby in a dark coat with no tie, and his hair slightly less arranged than usual, and she could tell immediately that he had not been sleeping the way he should. His face had the particular quality of a person who has been spending significant time with guilt as a roommate. It did not make her feel powerful. It made her feel tired. The specific exhaustion of caring about someone you cannot stop caring about, regardless of what they did. He saw her cross the lobby, and something in him visibly steadied, the way a compass needle finds north. That too she noticed. That too she filed. Leyla. He reached for her hands. She let him take them. You look. He stopped. He looked at her properly. His eyes dropped. The visible curve. still early. Unmistakable if you were looking. He was looking. His face did something unguarded and completely genuine. Something she had not expected. Not guilt, not calculation. Awe. The particular awe of a man understanding for the first time the actual dimension of what he had been careless with. "How long?" he said, barely above a whisper. 13 weeks. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet at the corners, which she had seen only twice before in 3 years. Once at his grandfather's funeral, and once during a film she still teased him about. "I'm sorry," he said. "Leyla, I am so sorry. I know that is not enough. I need you to know that I know it is not enough." "It's not," she said, "but it's a place to start." She led him to the seating area near the lobby windows. They sat. She kept her hands in her lap. He kept leaning slightly toward her, the way people do when they are afraid that more distance will become permanent. "I want to be here," he said. "For you. For our child. I know I don't have that right anymore. I'm asking for the chance to earn it back. Whatever that looks like. Whatever you need from me, I will do it." She looked at him carefully. This man she had loved for 3 years. This man who was sitting in a lobby in Hanam-dong, learning to be brave at 11 in the morning on a Wednesday, approximately 3 months later than it would have mattered most. "There's something else," she said. He waited. She told him about the twins. She told him about the hospital. She told him the medical term, slowly, the way the doctor had told her. She told him what the preliminary results indicated about paternity. She watched his face go completely still, then white, then something she did not have a name for. A man standing at the absolute edge of a fact that would reorganize everything he thought he understood about the last 3 months, and choosing, in real time, what kind of man he was going to be about it. The silence lasted a long time. Then Seojun Kim, heir to one of Seoul's most powerful families, a man who had been carefully managed and strategically positioned his entire adult life, looked at the woman across from him and said the simplest thing he had ever said. "Tell me what you need. I'll do it. No conditions." No negotiation, no careful assessment of how this affected his position, or his family, or the carefully maintained image his mother had been polishing for 29 years. Just, "Tell me what you need." She studied him. He doesn't know how yet, she thought. But he means it. That was not nothing. "I need you to earn proximity," she said. "Not assume it, not purchase it, earn it." She held his gaze. "And there is another man involved in this situation. That is not going to change. You need to decide right now, in this lobby, whether you are capable of handling that like an adult." He was very still. "Is he good to you?" he asked. The question surprised her completely. She had been prepared for jealousy, for wounded pride, for the particular performance of a man who mistakes possession for love. She had not been prepared for that. "Yes," she said. He nodded, slowly. The nod of a man accepting coordinates he did not choose and deciding to navigate by them anyway. "Then I'll figure out the rest," he said. She looked at him one long moment. "I'll call you this week," she said. "We'll start there." She stood. He stood. He reached for her hands again. A question this time, not an assumption. She let him hold them for a moment. Then she stepped back. She walked to the elevator. She did not look back. She had learned, in 13 weeks, that looking back was something she could no longer afford. Not because the past wasn't real, not because Seojun wasn't real, but because she was carrying 2 lives, and they needed her attention facing forward. The elevator opened. She stepped in. The doors closed. Upstairs, she knew, Minjun was in his study. He would hear the elevator. He would know she was back. He would not come out immediately. He never did. He gave her the space to arrive back into herself before he entered a room. But within a few minutes there would be tea on the kitchen counter, and the quiet sound of him moving through the apartment, and the particular steadiness of his presence, that she had stopped questioning, and started simply receiving. She pressed the button for his floor. She thought about 2 boys, 2 names she had not chosen yet, 2 futures she was only beginning to see the shape of. She thought about a Tuesday evening in Gangnam, in the rain, and a car door that had been unlocked, and a man who had handed her his jacket and said, "Then I'll drive." As if her not knowing where to go was simply a problem with a solution, rather than the evidence of everything falling apart. She thought about what it meant that she had ended up here, in this building, in this life, carrying this impossible, improbable, utterly unplanned truth. She thought it might mean something she was not ready to name yet, but she was getting there. Before I go, I need to ask you something. Seojun is trying. You saw it. He sat in that lobby and he said, "Tell me what you need," without flinching. He is showing up. He is learning. But Minjun has been there from the beginning, quietly, without being asked, without making her feel like his presence was a favor. 2 men, 2 babies, 1 woman who ran through the rain and found something she wasn't looking for. If you were Leyla, right now, 13 weeks in, knowing everything she knows, which way do you lean? And do you think Seojun actually has a chance? Or is he already too late? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you today, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, and come back, because this is only the beginning.